The Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derbies, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, hosts of Maymania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the Finger Lakes Speedworld.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 263 of the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, coming to you on an off night. We were trying to coordinate a couple things over at one of the local school boards here in town last night. Ended up losing that battle because of the weather. They didn't have the meeting, so that's been pushed off until next week. So next week, expect a change of schedule as well as we juggle some of that stuff here in Waterloo, and hopefully we'll have some good news to come of it as we move forward from there. But that's a side note that is well in the future. Nothing that we need to concern ourselves with this evening. Brian is handling some family stuff. Last night, everything was going to be good to go, but something had come up, so we're going to be flying solo tonight. Got three guests on deck. We're going to be looking first at Speedworld. We're going to be talking to Ed Brewster of Finger Lakes Speedworld, which is at the Auburn Mall, just up 5 and 20 from where we are here in Seneca Falls. Finger Lakes Speedworld has become an annual racing go-to event, and then Ed's been making the trip up for the last several years to come up and do RC Derby. So Ed Brewster waiting on the line. We'll touch base with Jim Olin, and then we'll finish up talking with Mike Schmidt, who was the original Mad Dog Award winner at Capital City Carnage back when that show started. We're going to talk with him a little bit about what it takes to win Mad Dog, how tough it is to keep your focus when you're running on a stage quite like that, and we'll get into more of that stuff with him in a little bit. So without any further ado, Ed Brewster is waiting in the wings as he gets ready to make the trek north here to Finger Lakes Speedworld, which opens on Friday night unofficially. That's all move-in for the big cars, and then he's got activities planned Saturday during the day and Sunday during the day. So Ed is on the line. Ed, how are you?
I'm doing good, Chris.
That's good. We've been talking to you a lot the last few weeks.
What's that, Chris?
We've been talking to you a lot the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's funny how,
like it, man.
funny how the schedule works out. Everything comes in bunches. So you are fresh off of the events at Harrisburg during Motorama. All the activities have stabilized there. I saw there was a rule clarification that was issued regarding some of the stuff and some of the protocols that are going to be adhered to the rest of the season for GMW and the member chapters, and that is going in place for Finger Lakes Speedworld. And you've got a team derby planned for Sunday, some open classes, some trucks. It's going to be busy this weekend up at Auburn Mall.
Definitely, Chris. We've got plenty planned to run up there. One thing I'm bringing is the Run What You Brung
right.
class up there, and basically kind of want to see what shows up, see if it's something like paying out. But anyway, getting up there is always it's one event I really relax at, and looking forward to getting up there.
Been some ups and downs on what's happening with Speedworld's RC Demolition Derby events itself. Initially, the plan was to have the event held at Velocity Speedway. That now has changed, and you're going to have access to the storefront, just given the amount of space that is required to pull it off. Hopefully Velocity Speedway is cool with it. The guys that did run this past weekend at a small get-together with Doug Myers at an RC event at that track that ran on the carpet said that it was so grippy, it was almost too much traction, and they want to get on something that's still got a little bit of that slide to it.
Yeah, I think the floor in that storefront is perfect. Offers just the right amount of traction and looseness, and also we know mops up well.
True. Very true.
And I kind of like being there, too, because I can kind of see out in the mall while I'm there and so forth, because the Speed World show is awesome, and I think being more up front, I'll feel a little better. Just, I don't know, being able to see everything instead of just peering out from the back of a building now and again.
Right. The amount of space that you guys use up when you come up to do those RC events, generally the track is situated to be 20 by 20, adjustable as small as 16 by 16. But then you've also got your spread as well, which includes tech and inspection tables, some of the different wares that you've brought up from Virginia, given that they could be complete cars or body kits, whatever. It is going to be a little bit easier to be up there closer to the windows, closer to the midway.
Oh, definitely, yeah. That way I'll be able to roam around a little bit.
The derbies down in Harrisburg, down at Motorama, they went pretty well, all things considered. But there are some clarifications that were that had to come out. At this point, the clarifications, how have they been received?
Very well so far, Chris. Seeing, what happened at Motorama with that, but, of course, everything issues arise, and fortunately it seems to be a really great fix for it.
For everybody that is interested in that, you can check out Ed's pages on JMW. His personal page also has that on Facebook. The big things were clarifying that you can run any shock that you want now. It doesn't just have to be the plastic tube factory spring. It can be an aluminum adjustable shock if need be. And then also clarifying the 30-second shot clock, which seemed to be a big point of contention down there in Harrisburg, that it is contact on a car that is involved, not just simply rocking your RC entry back and forth 3/4 of an inch.
Definitely, that was one of the best changes right there.
Well, I think it keeps people from sandbagging. I mean, theoretically, right. somebody could get hung up on a car, and as long as they can rock their car back and forth, whether that car that they're hung on is in the hunt or not, as long as they can move their car, it keeps them eligible. So every 30 seconds, all I've got to do is pop a throttle a little bit, move my car, rock it, and I reset my shot clock. And theoretically, I could last a lot longer than the guys who are on their throttle throughout the whole event, and nobody wants to win that way.
Oh, definitely. This is going to solve that as well. Like I said, we've seen those issues all along here, and that rule should have been changed long ago. And I don't know, it just kind of showed its face at Motorama. It was time to get it changed. Sure.
What's the schedule like at this point for for Finger Lakes Speedworld?
Give me a second to reach my note in my pocket, Chris. So we get that question. Anyway, Saturday, I know we've got a national class we're just calling a fun run.
Right.
We're going to have a good time doing that one. Got a truck class lined up for Saturday as well. And getting to that schedule, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the day we got the Run What You Brung lined up, too, on Saturday. But anyway, here, I'll give you a quick rundown. Inspect sign-up open at 9:30. Truck class at 11. This is all Saturday.
Okay.
National class fun run at 2:30. And we've got a Run What You Brung derby at 4 o'clock.
All right.
And then Sunday, we've got the outlaw class. No, I got that one backwards. Hang on. We've got the 2-driver team national class at 11:30, and then outlaw class at 2 o'clock.
Gotcha. And that's what's the difference between outlaw class and Run What You Brung at this point?
Run What You Brung, to be honest with you, Chris, is kind of an experiment. I want to see what shows up.
All right.
So, just 10 pounds and under is a rule at the moment in which they stick to aluminum. That's pretty much it.
Wow. So it has to be aluminum, but you didn't say what gauge aluminum.
I sure didn't, Chris.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said, experiment. Let's see what shows up and see what it may be.
Have you got some sort of pike pole or something to roll cars over so that you don't have to enter the ring while they're running?
I hadn't given that thought. Thank you, sir. I'll get something figured out for that.
You could really have some heft flying around out there, and that's a little bit of a subtle difference from what you've got with that outlaw class, because the outlaw still has a battery restriction and has a weight restriction to 10 pounds and also length restriction as well.
Correct. Yeah. I actually had thought about the rink size after I put this out there, and I thought, oh, well, again, it's an experiment, and I think it'd be a fun way to end the day on Saturday.
Well, the business day is Sunday. That team derby seems like it's something everybody's been looking forward to. And when I was reading through the rules, I see that there's descriptions and clarifications. Not so much clarifications. That's not fair because it's been in the rules for a while. But there are definitions of what holding and pinning are in terms of regular derby and team derby, and pinning outlined as holding with a front bumper or the back bumper, specifically with the intent to hold, and you've got a standing 10 count to hold somebody with a pin, but basically holding is just flanking with the doors, and that's openly allowed in anything, especially on a car that's been rolled over.
Yeah, I don't often, run the team derbies and so forth, so I'm going to make sure I'm up on my game before I get there.
Right.
And I don't know. All the guys really seem to enjoy them, and I think that's something we'll be adding to more schedules is the team derbies.
Sure.
And, I think the outlines and the rules for the team derby are very good at the moment till we run across the issue somewhere.
Right. It all depends on what comes up, right?
Right. Never know where and when. When you least expect it. So.
Mud Bosses are going to be running up there again this year. If anybody listening at home is interested in bringing a car up, I got to get this dust. I don't know what it is. Something just got in my eye. It's driving me nuts. We've got space available if anybody does want to bring their Derby car up to showcase it in that Joanne Fabric area where the RC Derby is going to be happening. That change happening within the last couple of weeks here. Honestly, I haven't been pushing the Derby appearance very hard up here because we've had such miserable weather. People haven't been able to get out even and necessarily clean things up, and a lot of the attention has been put on getting ready for the coming up the trade show, the swap meet that's happening at Paradise Speedway. So there's that out there as well that everybody's sort of keeping their eyes on top of everything. So trying to juggle everything and keep everybody's attention in the right places. But at this point, with a little bit of a break in the weather, at least supposed to be this week, unless we get this big snowstorm that they're talking about too, it would be nice to see some Derby cars up there. But I understand the situation; those guys just haven't had the chance to haul out the way that they needed to. You said you were affected by some weather down there today as well, right?
Yeah, we've just been getting rain just for days. Finally, yesterday sometime let up and been dry today, but more on the way. So been having a real hard time getting JMW RC Park back open. But hoping to do that after I get back from up there to Auburn. You
were talking about doing something Easter weekend, right, for a grand opening? Well, a season opener?
I can get the place back open soon enough and get myself back on track right, I think it is possible. So we'll just have to see what happens.
How have you been feeling since you got back? I know you were dealing with some surprise health challenges in Harrisburg.
Yeah, it'll be a little while getting back fully to myself, but, coming along, I feel much better now. And, of course, I'm always ready to get up in your neck of the woods there and have some fun, and that's always relaxation. So
right.
They tell me that's what I need to relax a little.
You're in the wrong business for that. In the wrong business for that. But so your plans are getting into town on Friday, and then you've got the action Saturday. Everything
right,
kicking off at 9:30 with tech inspection, 11 o'clock the first round of action on Saturday. Same schedule follows with the National Team Derby. You're going to do heats with that Team Derby, or you're going to run all the teams at one time?
Everything's just kind of one and done, man.
Yeah. Probably not a bad way to do it. If you run it one and done, it'll take the form of a Team Derby anyway. Just look at any of the high profile features that you've had over the last 3 or 4 years. People run together.
Yeah. And we got an awesome little Mad Dog trophy coming up there for the Team Derby. So
awesome.
Kind of like the one at Motorama, and everybody wanted that one.
For sure. Well, that's outstanding. I wish you safe travels. Is there anybody that you wanted to make mention of? I know you've been working real close with Ace Hobbies, and there's some surprise guests that are going to be coming up and representing their signature cars that were created over at Ace Hobbies as well this weekend at Finger Lakes Speedworld.
Oh, yeah. Ace always got my back, man. I'm glad to be with them, and be real happy Butch Cisco's coming over. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be running with us. All I got to make a couple of adjustments on his body real quick. Butch got one of the first ones. We found a couple of keys we need to work on.
Right.
So we'll talk to him about that. So anyway, yes. It's going to be great to see him, and also I'll bring up some of the Butch Cisco bodies with me. It'd be a good time to get yourself one, get it autographed by Butch.
Sounds awesome. Again, the schedule for GMW RC Demolition Derby at Finger Lakes Speedworld coming up on Saturday, 9:30 tech opens. The first round of action is at 11, then 2:30 and 4 with the trucks and the Run What You Brung after that. And then on Sunday, tech opens at 9:30. First round of action for the National Team Derby at 11, and then the Outlaws to end the weekend will be a little bit later in the day to 2:30 range at that point. Ed, man, it's always good to hear from you. Appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us for a little while. Travel safe.
Thanks for having me on, Chris, and looking forward to seeing y'all up there.
We'll see you on Friday.
All right, Chris.
Thanks a lot. There goes Ed Brewster. We're going to shift gears real quick and just quickly get a couple thoughts from Jim Olin, who oversees Finger Lakes Speedworld. He's been in charge of it for the last couple of years. We've had him on some of the other shows that we've been working on as well with Final Round Drag Racing Podcast and the 31st Lap. So this is the part where you get to watch me talk on the phone. There's Jim right there. So we'll touch base with Jim for a few minutes. Jim, how are you?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
We're doing okay. Everything coming along well for Finger Lakes Speedworld?
Yeah, so far.
So far?
Crunch time. Crunch time.
You
guys are used to, right?
It's nothing new there. The annual Finger Lakes Speedworld snowstorm looks like it's coming a few days early, so we should make move in on Friday all right.
We'll see. I mean, it's getting to be an annual tradition here, so.
Right.
I don't know. I'm going to start scheduling my show around the weather. I don't know if we can or not.
Nah, you'll be fine. It's not going to be an issue. One of the nice things about Finger Lakes Speedworld is the mall does allow folks to move in a couple days early if weather forecasts start to look pretty crummy. It looks like most of the snowfall is going to be out of the way by the time you're ready to move cars in on Friday night. Any vendors looking to come and set up at Finger Lakes Speedworld over at the Finger Lakes Mall, the doors are open to them with tables and such at 2 o'clock, but it's after mall hours conclude that the full-size vehicles will be brought in. It's racing focused, but it's all ages, and it's a big interactive show. It's not just one of those static displays where you look at a bunch of cars roped off from the public. You can get right up and close personal with anything in terms of motorsports at this event.
Yeah, even the promoter. Although a lot of these shows, you never know who ran them because you can't find the people. And
sure.
I mean, I'm right in the thick of it. Yeah, I think I'm going to put a step counter on me, a pedometer this year. I bet the last year, I'll bet you I walked 30 miles in that mall.
I bet.
In the weekend. Yeah.
You start to understand you start to appreciate how both big and small that mall is after you walk up and down it about 500 times, huh?
Yeah, and I can tell you that during the show, it takes me an average of 3 hours to make it from one end to the other.
Because everybody wants to stop and talk?
Because everybody wants to talk. And that's fine. That's what we're there for, so
right.
I'm not complaining. I was thinking I might get me one of those Paul Blart Mall Cop Segways
right.
cruise around on, but I think they'd frown on that.
Either that or they would confiscate it and use it for themselves.
Probably, yeah. But, no, things are moving right along. We got everything's pretty much in line. I got a message from Eddie Brewster. He's all set to go, get scheduled up and everything, so that's good.
Yep. That's excellent. We just talked with Ed a few minutes ago about what he was planning on doing. He calls this one of his trademark staple shows. He loves getting up here and taking part of it. And one of the hallmarks is giving him the access and the support that he needs in order to pull off what he does. And that RC Derby always has a ton of people standing around it come showtime.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. You should have had me on when Eddie was on. I missed his accent. That is a backwoods, deep Southern accent that just you don't get that up here in New York.
Right? Yeah, it's atypical, but I mean he took to the Finger Lakes like a fish to water. He really likes it up here. He's lucky. He's been getting rain down there. You can still move a race car in rain. It's a little bit tougher when you're looking at 7 inches of snow.
Yeah, right. No, Ed's he's a trip, and I'll tell you what. We had the first year. I think even he was skeptical about what we were up to,
mm-hmm.
And and then when he saw how many people we actually bring in for this show and what was going on, I think that really catapulted it into something bigger than maybe even he expected. So, but again, it's kind of one of those deals where you throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Sure.
And, we've been doing that for the last. This is year number 4, I think, for me.
4.
Every year we try a little bit of new stuff. We bring back some of the old stuff, and they just keep getting better and better.
The show itself, running Saturday and Sunday this weekend. Big attention grabber up there is obviously going to be center court. Paul Cole with Land of Legends is going to be up there. A bunch of dirt modified sprint cars. The Patriot Sprint Tour and the CRSA are going to be part of that center court display. Dave Axton's going to be up there as well, taking measurements for fire suits and stuff like that. But one of the other nice things is a number of the tracks that are involved also support Demolition Derby. You see King Smash and Crash from Demolition Derbies hosting derby events at Utica Rome. Fulton, Brewerton Speedway, Land of Legend Speedway has Demolition Derbies periodically through the year. It's situated at the Ontario County Fairgrounds, which has a Demolition Derby through the course of their fair. So fingers crossed that some of these derby guys do turn out. They've had a little bit of a challenge here through the course of the winter, just trying to get to a point where they could get stuff either fixed and ready to come or something new built and ready to come, just with some of the weather challenges that we've had. But I'm hoping that some of those guys do bring their entries out and can display them. If not, it's a good place for those guys to come and see a different slice of the motorsport world. You never know what you can come up with. There's been a handful of these derby guys that have been looking into getting those GM crate motors that have been used up by the sportsman drivers and then retuning them for their needs, and it's a cheap way into a high horsepower motor.
Yeah, it sounds logical, doesn't it?
Why not?
My stake rack pickup, my '86 Chevy C30 has what went on to be the 604 crate motor,
right?
And the old 350. I think they called it an N code Good Wrench GM 350 crate motor, and I'll tell you what, it's got a lot of power. It's got tons of gear. I mean, it could pull a house down and drag it down the road 45 miles an hour, but. So yeah, it's good to see stuff like that getting repurposed, because these sportsman guys they run those motors for so many races, and then it actually costs almost as much to reseal or to refresh and reseal the motor as it does to just buy a new one.
Right.
And so you're almost better off doing it that way.
I'm wondering if some marketing genius figured that out ahead of time and got with the engineers, because they're going to be able to sell more units that way than getting people to fix them, because they are an affordable engine. I mean, they're a very affordable engine. That's one of the reasons why the sportsman class has had the renaissance that it's had, that it's been so successful all these area tracks, is because it's significantly cheaper to get into than it used to be.
Right, and I'll tell you, a lot of the big sportsman teams, they'll buy a number of these motors. They'll buy, 8 or 10 of them, and then they take them and they dyno them, and they keep the best ones for themselves, and they'll resell the other ones. And
sure.
Because they bought so many motors, they got a deal on them.
Right.
And then,
right.
They resell them at retail price or just a little bit below, and sometimes they end up getting the motors that they kept for nothing.
Right.
So, that works out too. Because I don't care how even you say a motor is to the next one. They're mechanical objects. They're a system. They could be different between the one built right next to the other one. Could be totally different.
Definitely. So, we got the motor builders in the Demolition Derby world that are building purpose-built stuff, and they're buying heads 2 and 3 sets at a time. They're buying pistons 3 and 4 sets at a time, and trying to find all of them that are the closest in their tolerances and what fits the best, and taking the combination of all of it, making the best motor here, and then the next group of parts that are the best, the next second best motor behind that, and then whatever's left over sits on the shelf of spare parts, or it gets sent back to the manufacturer.
Yeah, and it blows my mind that derbies have changed so much over the years, because
right.
Like being a kid and going to the Brewster Speedway or whatever, and they'd have a derby on during the regular Friday night show or whatever. And I remember watching a guy out there in either Chevy Citation, I think it was a Chevy Citation, regular hatchback, and it was one of the first front-wheel drive cars that we had seen run in a derby, and he was out there with everything, big Ford station wagons, and there was a Caprice wagon and everything.
Sure.
Every time that car got hit, it was like it got hit by a train.
Right.
But when they got to the end of the derby, it was just, he ended up coming in second, and only because the car died and he couldn't get it just wouldn't turn. The battery had come loose.
Right.
And but they threw the battery and started up, drove it off the track, but all that was left was the front end of the car, and everything up to the back of the front seat was gone.
Right. It's just flat.
He was just driving around on the front axle, and that's all he had. And all he had to do was just stay out of the way,
Right.
And now that's I guess what they term like a junk run, right?
A junk run is more along the lines of like SUVs and minivans and small trucks. That would be more along the lines of like a compact class, and the compact classes. there's just as much invested into those now as there are the big cars. They're running some of the Fox body Mustangs, some of the Camaros have gained a lot of traction. AMC products from the 70s, the Pacer, the Gremlin, the Pacer wagon, all that stuff.
Terrible. That's terrible. You can't wreck a Pacer. That's terrible. Don't tell me that.
Pintos, Mustang 2s, those are popular as well.
Pintos, no, can't wreck Pintos either. I'm gonna make a list. These are all cars you can't wreck.
Yeah.
Pintos, Pacers, gotta keep those around.
If you can wreck a Pacer and come away with $10,000, I'm telling you right now, the Pacers are gonna get wrecked.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I had a couple of Pacer station wagons. And I love those cars. My ex-wife hated riding it. She said it was like driving around in a giant display case. But whatever. That's why she's my ex-wife.
Wow. Okay.
Well, no, it wasn't because of the Pacer, but I can tell you there's a lot more to it than that.
I believe that for sure. You got the Pinup Girls coming back this year?
Yes. The Parlor City Dolls. They stepped in last year to bail out the CNY Rockabetties, who had a whole thing planned. They were doing this big pageant, and it was, for lack of better terms, very poorly organized.
Sure.
And so it was one of those deals where it was like, okay, this is what you do, so you guys go ahead and do it, and I'm just going to stand over here and let you do it. And they didn't do it.
Right.
So phone calls were made, and Tina Johnson from the Parlor City Dolls came up with a bunch of the girls from Southern Tier Speedworld and, tripled the amount of entrants, and they just put on a great show. Great show. And so this year, I'll tell you what's changed, and this is pretty exciting for us. Now, we're involved with the Keys program
right
at the Finger Lakes Speedworld, and we're a huge supporter of the Keys program. Well, this is actually, I'm going to break this on your show today, so you're getting the world premiere exclusive here on
all right.
Crash Course, right? Here's the deal. Keys program does this promotion where they raise money for their organization. They're a nonprofit organization where they do a Wear Your Heart on Your Sleeve day. And what they do is they sell these little heart stickers, and they have a blank for a name on them. And you write the name in of somebody who, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve for, somebody who has cancer, an illness, something like that. And it's to show your support. Well, February 28th is Wear Your Heart on Your Sleeve Day. Colleen Bennett from the Keys program has decided to move the Wear Your Heart on Your Sleeve event to Finger Lakes Speedworld March 2nd and 3rd so that we can support it at the mall. But that's not the end of it.
Okay.
This is where the pinup girls come in now.
All right.
Tina Johnson, better known as Rosie Rockabilly, that's her pinup name, does the Rosie the Riveter pose from back in the old, I think it was World War I
sure.
posters,
Yeah.
And so what she's going to do is she's going to have one of these heart stickers on her sleeve for a very good friend of hers that actually has cancer. She's going to have that on her sleeve, and what she's going to do is she has one of those Polaroid instant cameras, the new ones that print pictures right out.
Sure.
And so for a donation, you can get, if you have your heart, you buy a heart, and then you go over and you can pose with her and get your picture. I think it's going to be like $2. And then she brings around a board that she'll pin up all the pictures to, so she'll have 2 copies of each picture. She'll pin all the pictures to that board and then donate that board.
Okay.
But all the money coming in for that will go to support the Keys program as well.
Awesome. Can't go wrong with that. That's cool.
Go ahead.
I just think it's cool. You got the chance to get your photo with Rosie the Riveter, and then all that's going to go back to the Keys program as well, which is to make very loose comparisons. Keys program is basically they do, I think they call them Smile Days, right? It's sort of along the lines of you have a day where cancer is not the main part of your life, right?
Right, yeah, they call it a Smile Experience. They work with the Syracuse Quarter Midget and Oswego Quarter Midget Club under USAC. And what they do is the Keys program owns several quarter midgets that are their actual raceable quarter midgets, and they plate them down and gear them down so they only go so fast. They really don't go that fast at all. But they supply all the safety equipment and everything like that to bring the cars out to the track, and then they have these parents of these children get to bring their kids out, and they may never have a chance like this.
Right.
So this is something for them to come out and do. And they do it at the Syracuse track at the New York State Fairgrounds, and they do it at the Oswego Quarter Midget Club track, which is by the airport in Fulton, corner of Silk and Howard Road, also known as Claytona. So Claytona, named after Clay Brewer. It's not a dirt track.
Right.
But anyways, so that's the deal with them. That's where I hooked up with them last year, and they were just I had no idea what the program was, never heard of it. But their main focus is, like I said, days of respite, days to get away from the everyday trials of dealing with childhood cancers, or other illnesses in that respect.
Right. I think it's a great cause, and hopefully everybody comes and turns out to support that element of the show. Front to back, it's an outstanding event. You can find just about everything from go-karts to dirt bikes. There's been snowmobiles there before. Asphalt modifieds, super modified that was there last year was Jim Champine's car. You've got Kenny Tremont's restored modified that's going to be there this year. Dirt modified sprint cars front to back. There's something for everybody, and the Demolition Derby guys are welcome to bring their stuff up. There's no pre-registration required. There's no entry fee to put the car on display. It's just bring the stuff up and everybody gets together. The only caveat is the Derby guys do have to bring either the motor has to be in a diaper or you've got to have a cardboard to put underneath it, just in the event anything does leak out and we don't want to stain the floor. But front to back, it's an awesome show to be part of. And then Friday night for move-in, you're cooking for everybody.
Yes, yeah. Funny story. I'm in between two kitchens right now because I know you're following me on Facebook, but I'm moving my kitchen from the front corner of my house to the back corner of my house where the master bedroom used to be. And so I have an oven and counter space in one kitchen and a sink and a stove in the other kitchen. So this is going to be interesting. But we'll be serving food Friday night, probably after 7 o'clock or so, in the old Joanne Fabric store. We'll have a table set up there, and it's just kind of a thank you for everybody coming out, because I know a lot of the people displaying are coming right from work. They load their cars on the trailer and take them to work with them and then stop at the mall on the way home.
Sure.
And how that got started was the first year that I ran the show. Everybody showed up, and 7:30, people are like, "Geez, we're starving." I'm like, "Go over to the food court, get something to eat," and they said it's closed. And back then, the food court, everything in the food court closed at 7 p.m.
Right.
And so Subway and everything that was in there was closed. So the following year, I said, "All right, well, people got to eat." So I made food, and everybody got to eat, and then it got to be such a big hit. Now it's a tradition. It's like our kicking off the racing season family dinner type thing. So awesome. I think we're gonna call it the first supper. But
yeah, you can't go wrong there. It's always a home run, the front to back, getting out there for that. And again, we appreciate Speedworld giving us the chance to use that Joanne Fabric building for the RC Derby stuff. Velocity Speedway was a big time help for that too. We're going to have some Mud Boss racing over the course of the weekend in addition to the Derby stuff. It's going to be a good weekend all the way around.
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good chance. The weather's supposed to be kind of crummy on Saturday, so it'll probably be a good day to be inside checking some stuff out. Of course, the folks in Bass Pro would just love to see us stop in and spend some cash there.
Right.
And that's one thing that always makes me feel good about that show, is that when I'm walking around, talking to people, they're carrying bags from stores that are in the mall.
Yep.
And so that's good. They're not just coming to look at race cars and leaving. They're coming there to spend money at the mall. And that's the kind of part of the reason why they let us do the show there in the first place.
Well, I mean, this show ranks number 2 behind Black Friday for the mall, which, I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
Well, the difference with that is, Black Friday is it's a one-day event type thing. And, I used to hear from the old marketing director that they had before that, Jesus, this show is not that big a deal. We had a couple of events in here that brought in, thousands of people and blah, blah, blah. But the difference was they were events and shows that they were having in the event center, which means you parked out back, you walked into the event center, you watched your show, you drank your beer, and you left.
Right.
So, this is in the mall. It's the whole weekend, and, they graciously provide us the space, which is good. And, hey, we'll keep doing it as long as the mall's still up.
Perfect. Jump on Facebook. They got a very active Facebook page. Punch in Finger Lakes Speedworld. It's 4 separate words on Facebook. You'll be able to pick up right on the cross flag icon for Finger Lakes Speedworld on Facebook. If you're looking for more information in terms of the schedule and what's happening front to back through the course of that weekend. Jim, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. I look forward to seeing you on Friday when Ed gets to town.
Yeah, I'll be plugging. I'm going to plug your show on my show tomorrow night. So got the museum, got the Slavic family coming in from. They're coming up from Binghamton, but they race with the. Actually, they're with Syracuse this year.
Okay.
But anyways, quarter midgets. So we're going to We're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to give a real good in-depth preview for Speedworld. So
awesome.
Good times on the Finger Lakes Speedworld page. Check it out. Inside the Hall webcast, 7 p.m. tomorrow night.
Perfect. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
I got to get you on my show.
I know you do.
Always on your show.
We talked about it once before, but we never got there. Well, we can plan more of it out. We'll be up there this weekend.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right.
All right, Chris. Thank you.
Man, thanks. I'll catch you this weekend. Thanks, Jim.
All right, man. Take care.
Goes Jim Olin. Wrapping up a quick talk with him. We've got Mike Schmidt coming up here momentarily. We've got to first take care of this here. Just want to remind everybody, Capital City Carnage is coming up here. It's knocking on the door. Just about 3 weeks away from this one. The Kansas Expo Center in Topeka, Kansas is home of Capital City Carnage. Thursday, the 21st of March. We got Mike Schmidt waiting in the wings here. So we'll get to Mike here in just a second. We're going to finish with this. Thursday, the 21st of March is the heat draws, scheduled to go off at 7 o'clock. Friday, the 22nd of March is the limited weld heat, 7 o'clock start time for that. We'll go through all the qualifying rounds for the limited weld cars. And then we'll come back on Saturday with the twin bill. 10 o'clock the start time for the limited weld consolations. We'll round out that limited weld feature field with that round of qualifying. We've also got the compacts and the first of the 2 extreme 2-man classes go off during that 10 o'clock program. The 7 o'clock championship round will include that 10,000 win limited weld feature, the modifieds, and the second flight of the 2-man extreme cars. March 21st through the 23rd, 2019, Capital City Carnage online, capitalcitycarnage.com. So now we're going to shift gears back to looking at some of the history of Capital City Carnage. Mike Schmidt joining us on the line. Mike not going to be in competition this year, but is always going to have a special spot in the record book as the first ever winner of the Mad Dog Award at Capital City Carnage. Mike, how are you?
Pretty good.
That's good.
Can you guys hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine. No trouble at all.
Okay.
So
how's it going?
It's going okay, going good. I wanted to catch up with you because there's obviously some history and some respect that comes with winning the Mad Dog Award at Capital City Carnage. You know, you put on a heck of a show, taking it the first time. Teddy Papadopoulos' run was remarkable. Jonathan Muse coming away with it as well in his run. Just right off the top, how hard is it to win the Mad Dog Award and at an event of this caliber? You know, there's $10,000 waiting out there for you. There's all kinds of money on the line, and you've got to sort of commit to the fact that you might be foregoing your opportunity at that big money just to walk away with the prestige and respect as a Mad Dog.
I don't think any of it's easy. We went into the feature. Car was in good shape. Got about 6-7 minutes in, and I lost an idler arm, and we all know you ain't winning a derby without steering. Well, right. I won't win a derby without steering, I guess.
Right.
So I just kind of held it down and went and had fun,
Right.
And you don't know you're winning it until the end either,
Right. So why? I mean, you went through the situation right there where you knew that you had to do something to make your weekend a little bit more lucrative, and you put all your eggs in the basket of the Mad Dog side of things. You know, we watched Teddy Papadopoulos a couple years back where he telegraphed his shot coming in. He said, I am winning the $5,000 Mad Dog Award, and nobody's going to stop me. And he was tattooing stuff end to end through his heat and through the feature. Do you have to go in with that plan, or do you go in with the plan of sticking around to win, and then if something falls apart and goes the wrong way, you're forced to shift gears? From your perspective, what's typically the approach?
If we look back to the way Teddy drove in his heat, they had a hard heat. He drove hard the whole heat. His car was beat up bad. Mm-hmm. They fixed it. He beat it up again. He drove hard that whole weekend.
Sure.
The first year we ran, it was muddy. I mean, you really didn't get to drive in your heats. Everyone was getting stuck.
Right.
They redid the dirt, got the dirt a little better, but people are still struggling with, tire combos and whatnot. But we went into the feature, and at the same point, I was thinking the track might have not got better. It might still be soft. And I lost the idler arm, and it wouldn't allow me to steer right. So let's go left, and I kind of just held it wide open.
Just turned into.
I didn't think I wanted. I mean, at that point, I didn't even know I wanted.
Right. Turned into Daytona at that point.
Worked all night on cars.
Right.
I was practically sleeping when they announced it.
It turned into a Daytona situation for you. I mean, you're just circling to the left, and whatever's in your way, you're hitting, but you're doing it at such a high rate of speed that it's hard to ignore that effort and what was going into it. I remember when your car finally did come to a rest, it was off to the right of our vantage point, and I want to say it was somewhere around 8th, 10th, somewhere's in there. You'd got a long way into that feature running with no steering. So, I mean, that did it cross your mind at all? Said, hey, maybe I do back it down. Maybe we see where we go. Or at that point, you're just pretty much committed to tearing the car to pieces.
Yeah, there was at one point in time I thought maybe I should back out of it because I thought I felt it steer right. And the idle arm allowed it to go right one time, and it was just easier to go left. And at that point, my radiator's gone. It's starting to get hot, so I just sent it.
It's better to damage the stuff that's going to get scrapped anyway than to hurt the motor, I guess, huh?
Yeah. I've won more Mad Dogs than I've ever even placing, so it's kind of in my nature to drive hard.
I mean, but isn't that what shows that are paying big money, that are high profile, that everybody's looking at? Don't they need that type of driver that's willing to come in and be the wild card, to come and put on a show? I mean, it is still an entertainment sport, and it is still something where there's a lot of variabilities to it. So if you come in and you drive a wide open style and you catch somebody that's trying to sneak their way into the top three, by keeping them honest, you can do one of two things. You can really mess up their night, or you can make it really entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, if you drive harder, you're going to set the pace, and sometimes the fast pace isn't good for the slow pace drivers either,
Right.
If the pace is fast, I mean, we've done it, in New Rockford plenty of times. It's always a fast pace derby, You set the pace, and a lot of stuff gets wrecked quick,
That's it. That is for sure. Last year's feature lasted hour and 10 minutes or so. That includes all the red flags, etc. For that. And it came down to Eric Blum, Trey Hewer, and Justin Montgomery. Chicken isn't coming back this year. He's going to just focus on cleaning up some pre-run stuff that he's got left laying around. I mean, I think every driver goes through one of those years where you've got a bunch of cars that you've run and you run and you run, and everything has got one or two runs left in it with a little bit of band-aiding, but it's not enough to go tackle some of the big shows. So you got to take a year off and just sort of use up everything that's laying around so that you can make room for the new builds.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. Me and Tori's, both our Blizzard Bash cars are perfectly straight up front, but where do we run them? We got nowhere to run them up here. New Rockford next September, so pull everything out and run some local stuff and put them back together.
Right.
Next Blizzard Bash, anyways.
That's one of the things also that stands out to me about your run, and that's a little bit different than what John Muse and Teddy did, is your cars were built to essentially the Blizzard Bash rules. The first iteration of Capital City Carnage wasn't the limited weld rules. They were still pretty heavy cars.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I prefer to build. I don't think I could drive. I don't have enough patience to drive a car in a limited. My car would never make it.
Why is that?
I don't think I can build it. I drive it too hard,
Yeah.
Or if I get aggravated out there, and it's just, I automatically put the foot down, and then my car won't make it. I think you got to have more patience and get through your heat and try to save your car, and then get your plates on and try to create a harder car.
Well, I think that's the nature of
rules.
Right, that's the nature of all demolition derbies. You want to try and make a harder car so that the weak spots are band-aided up before they become weak spots, so to say. But there's always going to be something else in the chain of command that by making that part stronger is going to, by proxy, make that part behind it weaker.
Oh, yeah. That happens a lot, too. I mean, you can fix it once here and fix it there, and then the next derby you'll find a new spot that let go or whatever.
Right.
Or the factory welds didn't hold up because they took some stuff away or whatever. I mean, Mandan last year, my whole engine crossover ripped off the whole frame rail. You know,
We're gonna jump into Mandan a little bit deeper, and I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't know that happened. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute, but I liked where you were going with the softer cars require you to be. Is it fair to say that the softer cars require you to be a better driver?
Yeah, I believe absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, every car to each their own, but if you drive them wide open, they're all going to bend.
Right. Well, except for the Blizzard Bash cars, which you guys still have.
Yeah, well, we didn't get to run them as hard as we'd have liked in the features. We'll try again this year, though.
Yeah. Now, quick sidestep here. Those cars that you've got there, why not do a little bit more to them and bring them down for the mod class at the Capital City Carnage so you could potentially finish them off and get them out of the way?
I sent motor in for refresh. I just wanted everything gone through and fresh for the spring, you know. If it wasn't the case of just making sure that, I mean, the engine's a big investment. I would sooner fix it and just refresh it instead of having rods hanging out the bottom or something.
Right. Where are you getting your motors from now?
Jordan Smith, Juice builds my motor still.
Right. Cool. So, you know, we talked a little bit about how a minute ago the softer cars maybe force you to be a better driver. So to go out and get a Mad Dog Award, if you're leaning on the spectacle of it, it might be easier to get that because your car's going to bend harder. It's going to be more severe. It's going to look more bent. It's going to look more twisted. Front bumpers are going to shove up on a lighter car and stuff like that. But at the same time, these guys that have won it in the lighter builds, those guys have gotten down quite a ways in terms of the features. So what, you know, from the outside looking in, knowing what the difference of the cars were from the heavy build when you won Mad Dog to what those guys did, which one's the tougher one to win?
Oh, I would say it's tougher to win Mad Dog with the light build cars.
Yeah.
I mean, if they come in wide open in one shot thinking that they're going for Mad Dog and they hit just wrong and it destroys their car, they might not have another chance to make another hit or whatever.
Right.
The mod cars are way more forgiving. Sure. I mean, we all know that.
Indeed they are. Indeed they are. The conversation that we had with Teddy, given that he was going for it, and then John Muse, knowing how much damage his wagon took last year in the heat for just trying to get to the feature. Both of those guys had to wait a little bit, or at least temper their aggression early on, because if let's say you've got 25 cars on the track and you go out there for a Mad Dog and you're out within the attrition of the first 8 to 10 cars, you're easily forgettable. You didn't stay in front of the judges long enough to get down into that final voting. So if you can make it up into that 10th spot while pushing the pace, while eliminating cars, while exacting pretty severe damage on everybody else while keeping your nose straight, I really think that it helps advance your cause in terms of getting that Mad Dog Award at the end of the night, because it seems like there's a pocket of drivers and a pocket of fans that respect the people that get the Mad Dog Award almost more than the people that win the Derby overall.
Yeah, I mean, John Muse, he went into his heat, politics didn't go his way, and I've seen him drive both ways. I've seen him drive hard, and I've seen him have his patience throughout the whole day, you know, and his patience runs short, and he did the exact same thing I would have did.
Yeah.
You know, just send the car and let's fix it after the heat, because that car was destroyed. I helped Carson Dixon and them guys fix that thing. That thing was trash.
It was.
And he went to feature and did the same thing, you know. They're going to remember that.
That's what you had to do. I mean, have you ever seen a wagon look that bad after a qualifying heat?
No, that was bad.
It was.
I think his engine mount was pushed through his engine saddle. It was hanging below it. It was crazy. It was beat up.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was bad.
You said maybe those Blizzard Bash cars are going to be run come up in September. What else does the season hold for you this year?
We're going to lay low, I think, and just we're going to pull our Blizzard Bash frames in and get started on them. So we kind of, you know, Tori's got harvest in the fall, so it's nice to get ahead of them. Since they didn't change the rules, it's nice.
Yep. Big help right there. Not
get ahead on them and just kind of lay low, run some local stuff, and try to get rid of some of this used stuff. So.
In terms of Mandan, you guys going to go back up there this year?
No, we're gonna skip Mandan this year as well.
Wow. So you guys are going all in on Blizzard Bash, it sounds. I mean, it sounds like it's a concerted team effort.
Yeah, we're going to give it one more. We're going to do one more shot. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Had some bad luck. You know how it is.
Oh, yeah.
Win some, you lose some.
It's still nothing beats driving into that arena, though, I got to believe.
Nope. You're right.
So, Mandan, last year, you're talking about the engine cross member got ripped out of the car completely? I didn't realize that. What happened?
On my passenger frame rail, it was torn loose after the feature.
Jeez. So what'd you do with that?
On the one side, it was still locked into the cross member because everything was welded that way, but it did a number on the passenger frame rail. That caddy of boogers was hard.
Was it?
Hard.
Did that happen in a single shot, and the momentum just ripped the welds off of it, or was it something that seemed to be progressive?
It was constant abuse, and I might have overlooked it, and after the heat, and right. I might have missed it. Where it was starting to tear, and then it just completely come loose.
You ever have a car do that before?
No. No, someone should have taught them GM welders how to weld factory seams a little better.
Well, every GM that I've ever seen come through an inspection line always had nothing more than the factory welds on it front to back. Everything was from the factory the day the car was made. 1974, that was the last time a welder touched the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not, huh?
No. No, definitely more welding. It just, I don't know if it was just a factory defect or what, but first one I've seen.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean,
different bumper packs allowed. I mean, a lot of things changed for that show. We were allowed to do a lot of stuff up front. And it just the motor and the cross member didn't move, so something had to go.
Sure. I mean, we talked about that in terms of the fix-it plate. Something else is gonna become the weak point at that juncture. The Mandan show itself, Blizzard Bash itself. Going back to Mandan quick, you're right. Booger's cars are insanely hard. They always are. That's not news.
Fun to drive against.
I think he's underrated as a driver too, to be honest.
I don't know about that.
I think he's a very good driver. I think he's underrated. People.
Oh yeah. That part of it, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, people don't give him the credit people don't give him the credit he deserves in terms of what he can do as a driver. At least in some circles, anyway. But
and a hell of a guy to be around at all times. It don't matter if you're derbying against him or drinking beer with him. It don't matter. He's always good.
I agree with that. I agree with that completely. Booger's a good dude. Tegan likes him quite a bit too. In terms of your Blizzard Bash cars, what direction are you going to go with those this year? You talked about bringing the frames in already. What are you building?
He'll be old iron.
Yeah.
Absolutely old iron.
so that narrows it down to
I don't know enough about the metric stuff.
Yeah. Narrows it down to a couple, 2-3 cars that I've seen you drive before that I'm pretty sure that we can figure out seeing some hard versions of those again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm in the same car. Just do one.
So do you grow those out there then?
No, we just buy them when we find them. It don't matter. Just go get them.
Can you find them out there? I mean, is it still pretty easy to come?
I got a lot of people that I probably pay more than some people do, but they call me and say, I got one laying here, and I go look at it, and if it's worth buying, I buy it.
Right. Well, hard to argue with that. If you got people that are looking to feed you.
I'm too busy to go look for them, so. I mean, they're out there. I mean, you got neighbors that find them, barn finds still, and there's probably more here than out east or wherever. They're all over. You just got to find them.
Out here, there's not anything. Out here, it's all either been picked up already or it's all rotten in half. It's because of the way the roads were treated forever. Even now we still have salt and stuff on the road. It's not as easy to keep a car pristine living where we do. And you start getting closer to the coast, you've got all the salt wash coming off the ocean, which doesn't do any favors to the cars either. They've all been snapped up and run through the fairs and stuff like that, or if they are around, they're all in collections at this point, and people aren't going to come off them. So, a guy that's in his mid-50s still has 300 cars. He's probably never going to derby them all, but nobody else is going to get their hands on them either.
Yeah, or just wait till the price goes up stupid, and then sell them one day. But
well, that could be in the plans too.
Yeah, I mean, these things are worth a lot of money already. I mean, we used to buy them for a case of beer, $50, and now they're $800 to $1,500, and I think people are paying $3,000 for wagons already. It's just
But it's not that people are looking to pay $3,000 for wagons. People are paying $3,000 for wagons because there's wagons to be bought for $3,000.
Yep, and they want them.
Yep. It'd be one thing if we were saying we're trying to spend $4,000 for wagons and we can't find them anywhere, but they're still turning up. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of them at Capital City Carnage. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of them at Bash for Cash, and I'm sure that they're going to be population will be reduced by a couple hundred again this year.
Yep, and they just keep turning up.
They sure do.
Someone's got a good stash of them somewhere, you know.
Do you ever get into the wagon craze, or from memory, most of the stuff that you've done was sedans?
Always been a forward guy. Just never got into them.
Yeah.
I know they tore off my steering plenty in Blizzard Bash this year. I mean, they're definitely a car to have, but.
Yeah, the Chad Markley comes to mind when you talk about using those rear rails as steering pickers. Man, he's surgical in terms of how he can place those, and he's not alone. The guys that know the wagons that have driven them and know how to get them to roll and get that metal to wrap around those rails, they can be pretty precise with those rear rails. But then the game changes a little bit when we get to Capital City Carnage. You know, it's not the same build style, but those wagons they're still popular.
The back ends are still where it's at, you know. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to back up.
Right. It's not really your thing.
I can't. No, not at all.
Yep. Well, I'm surprised to hear that you're going to lay low a little bit with as much run as you used to do, but putting that focused effort on Blizzard Bash, I can't really fault that plan either.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, there'll be some local stuff. We might scale back and run some lighter build stuff just to calm a person's mind a little bit. Just to have a little seat time, too, before a guy goes down there again. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked with Dustin Ingram a couple times about how Brad Tice as well, about how important it is to run a little bit through the course of the summer just so that you stay fresh and keep on top of your game. For sure.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Mike, have you got anybody that helps make sure that you guys can get down to Blizzard Bash and run the schedule that you guys do?
Oh, there's handfuls of people. I mean, they know who they are, but I mean, I got Cousin Stuart, my dad. I mean, people that help build the car to get the car done in time. Plus, then you got a handful of 7, 8 guys that come down, take a week off of work just to come down there, you know, just to help work on the cars, to get the cars back to the track.
Right.
No, we got a good group of people that help us out, and I appreciate all of it. Wouldn't do it without you guys.
Well, I appreciate you making some time and come on the show and talk a little bit about Capital City Carnage and what it takes to win a Mad Dog Award and some of the thought process that goes into it. It was really cool to hear you talk about and offer a little bit of analysis on the runs for Mad Dog by Teddy Papadopoulos and Jonathan Muse, and hopefully you're watching at home on DerbyNation.tv this year, and maybe we can get some more expertise as the week rolls on.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
I appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
That goes Mike Schmidt. Checking in. Mike Schmidt, again, was the first ever Mad Dog Award winner at Capital City Carnage, so it was cool to have him on and good to catch up with him. I think that is going to do it for us here at the North Park Building at Academy Square. Going to wrap up this edition of the Crash Course. We'll catch up with you again next Tuesday. We're going to have Monday. We got to attend to some stuff at home, so we're going to shuffle that again to Tuesday next week. But we will see you all then on episode number 264. 263 is in the books. We will catch up with you here next time on the Crash Course. Crash Course Live is presented by Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, hosts of Maymania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com. Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel, and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York.